Groton Harmony Board of Education. Recommended action that the Board of Education approves the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose, abstain? Motion carries. All right, recommended action, the Board of Education approves the resolution for the 2024-2025 BOCES administrative budget as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Is that a conflict for you? I'm sorry, because you're on the board and the second that? Do you have to abstain from that?
I don't, because the fact that I'm served on the BOCES board and also serve on this board.
I know that you're seconding our board's motion to approve that budget, given that you're on that board.
I don't think it's a conflict, but if you believe it is, somebody else can second, it's fine. I mean,
I don't think it's a conflict to second it and to move it to a vote, but I think
it's not, I don't even,
it's a procedural matter, right?
I think to be above like
yeah,
criticism, I'm happy to
With,
second it.
fine,
Yeah.
Perfect.
fine.
On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose, abstain? Motion carries. All right, recommended action that the Board of Education cast one vote for each of the 4 vacancies to be filled, provided that no more than 1 vote may be cast for any candidate as defined below.
I think it should be clear that vote for members of the BOCES board for 2024 to 2027, because
Sure.
the resolution doesn't really say that. It just says,
Yeah, the term is for July 1, 2024 through June 30, 2027. And the 4 candidates are Catherine Lilburn, Michael Simpkins, Neil Haber, and James Ryan.
if,
Can I get a motion?
So moved. Second.
On the question?
if anyone wishes to ask about myself as a candidate or any of the other board members as candidate, or as candidates, because each of them are presently serving as board members, I'll be glad to answer them. Otherwise, I can move forward.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Abstain?
Abstain.
Okay,
Motion carries.
so we have 2
2
abstentions.
abstentions. And recommended action that the Board of Education approves the bid award for tent, stage, and chair rental services to Cartwright and Daughters. The total contract being recommended is $29,615.90, which includes a base bid of $27,543 and an additional $2,072.90 for a damage waiver.
So moved.
Second,
On the question?
I had a question
Sure.
about the lighting. There's a lighting component to this bid? Is there a reason we need lighting?
Hold on, I'm just pulling it up. This is the lighting, so there is lighting inside, this is the graduation tent, correct? So there are lights on inside of that tent,
During the day?
not during the daytime one, but I believe at the evening, at the 6 p.m. graduation, the high school graduation in the evening.
Really?
Is this the string,
Yeah.
string lights? Is that?
Yeah, I think their string lights
Mhm.
that they're generally on in there.
Okay,
Like decorative.
It's a large tent, it casts a lot of shadows.
okay. Just asking.
Have we used this company before?
Several times, yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Oppose, abstain? Motion carries. All right, we'll move into ongoing business. Recommended action, be it resolved that the Board of Education approves the 2024-2025 property tax report card as presented.
So moved.
second,
On the question?
I just renew my usual annual comment that it is somewhat an act of hubris that the legislature has deemed to ask us to boil down something that is complex as a school budget into less than a page of text. And that I urge the members of our public to actually explore our actual budget, which is posted on our website.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain? Motion carries. All right, before we begin our work session tonight, I know Neil wanted to give a brief update on the policy work that has been ongoing.
That's a
Do you
brief,
want to move to amend the agenda to do that?
No, it's not an action item, so we were just giving a brief update.
on April 11th, the policy committee met in this room to discuss a revised, a revision to the policy that had previously been presented to the board for first reading, and that had been discussed on April 26th policy committee, March 26th policy committee meeting. Subsequent to that, that meeting, we discussed the revisions. Those revisions will be provided. Well, let me step back. We have agreed, and everybody on the board is available for a work session to discuss this policy on May 2nd, which will be at 7:30 p.m. We'll leave in this room as well. During that work session, we will discuss the policy that the policy committee worked on and crafted as of April 11th. That policy will be placed on the district website in the next couple of days. Comments will be solicited from members of the public in the same manner as we had done previously. That is by sending comments to the entire board at boe@chufsd.org. And we will have those comments. We'll set a deadline, probably either the Friday before May 2nd or the Monday before May 2nd, to give the board an opportunity to consider comments that are received from the public. And we will then work at a work session on discussing this policy. It is anticipated that we will have a first reading of the policy on May 9th at our business meeting for that day, and then thereafter on May 21st, when we meet for the next time, assuming that the board is ready at that point, we hope to have the policy approved. We welcome the comments and feedback from all members of the community. And when I say all members of the community, I'm talking about students, parents, faculty and staff, community members who are not parents of students in the school, all of whom will have, we will carefully consider whatever has been brought to our attention. We've done a lot of work on this, and we will do more work until we have it in a shape that hopefully the board will approve a policy. And that is a very brief description. Obviously, board members may have questions as well, which they can, as for any policy that is being considered by the board, direct those to the policy committee for the committee's consideration. But we believe that this, as a policy committee, I can say, and I think probably my colleagues on the policy committee, Josh Diamond and Theo O'Shea, would agree that we have had a very open and robust discussion about both philosophy and wording. And we hope that we have a product that is, that will be carefully considered by the community and by the board.
Thank you. Good. And with that, we will begin our work session for the evening. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us here tonight. I'm going to turn it over to John Griffiths to get us started.
I know, the first thing I have to say is how devastated our superintendent is that he cannot be here this evening. He has, he's dealing with, feeling a little bit under the weather. But he wanted me certainly to thank, all of you for being here. As he stated, what you see before you is the finest that the teaching profession has to offer. And for, on many occasions, the board and the community have heard about the hiring practices that we have taken on, some of them quite innovative, to see what we could do to attract the best of the best to come here to Kirtland. And that's really one of the things we celebrate when we have these professionals before us, before the board tonight. Special thanks to Erica and Jen for joining us. They're no strangers to our board. They are here tonight because they have been working for years with our New Teachers Academy. And they are very, very generous to come to Steve and to me about a year ago and say, we have some ideas. We have some ideas about how we can really strengthen the new teacher experience. And it has developed and morphed into something that I think is very unique, very, very special. Something quite honestly that when we had visitors from throughout our regions come for the Tri-States Consortium visit, they walked away really saying, hiring practices, new teacher academy, this is something very, very special. This is something that should be communicated. This is something that should be emulated, because they and Croton Harmon are really on to something. So I'm really, really happy to have all of you give your time and your dedication to not only what you do every day with your kids, but to being here tonight. And I'll hand it over to Erica and Jen.
Well, thank you. We were going to really take a deep dive into what New Teacher Academy looks like this year. We know when we presented initially a couple months ago, we were in the middle of the actual academy, but now that we've been through all of the different sessions, we want to be able to highlight all of those different categories. So whether it's student shadowing, intervisitations, or different lesson studies, and then part of this new cohort that's here is able to really give us their take on what that looks like this year.
So we're gonna kind of revisit what each of those three activities are that they went through.
So the student shadowing experience, actually you can go to the next even. The student shadowing experience was mainly about shadowing a student. So a day in the life of the student, and you'll hear in a few minutes, but each teacher really felt what it feels like to be a teacher, to be a student from the beginning to the end. So they went to bed early the evening before, they came in, they were ready to go, they followed that student so that they could feel what a student really goes through and some of those challenges. So in the next slide, you'll actually see just a quick video that we've compiled of the different types of components of student shadowing, and then you'll have an opportunity to hear from the teachers as well.
And they went to everything, academics, lunch, recess, any like transition periods. So they experienced it all.
Student shadowing was the most interesting for me. I've been teaching for 8 years, I think this is my 9th, and I've largely been teaching in my own room by myself quite a lot. Like I do at faculty meetings, I talk to the teachers, but I very rarely watch another teacher at work, and especially see a student's day like play out the entire way. So I got to see two different things. I got to see what our students are seeing on a day-by-day basis, and I got to see different styles of teaching all across the building on all sorts of different contents and curriculums, and it was great. I learned a lot from it.
From the student shadowing, I took away really the importance of giving our students breaks, seeing it from the eyes of a student and how tired I was after, even just shadowing a kindergartner. I wasn't expecting that. So after that experience, I built in a break for my students every day, so it's scheduled, they know it's coming, and it just gives them a chance to rest their brains and get ready for the next subject.
It's so interesting that you shadowed a kindergartner and said that, because I shadowed a fourth grader and took away the same idea. I chose to shadow a fourth grade student because I teach third grade students at the moment, and it would kind of give me an insight into what they will be going into next year. And I thought the same thing as Lainey did. They need more breaks, and the kids really value something as simple as a 15-minute snack time just to socialize with each other.
All right, so I guess we'll open it up for anyone else who has any other experiences that we did share. Go ahead.
So I was able to shadow a third grade student that I had in the previous year. And when he first came to my classroom in second grade, he had very little English. So to see him grow over my year that I had him, and then now in third grade, it was amazing to see in his academics and how he was socializing with all of his friends. But just like what Lainey was saying in the video, to go the whole day and go to special, go to lunch and recess, like, and I was playing with the kids or playing soccer, like he was engaging me, he was like, come play the soccer game, and I was exhausted at the end of the day. So it really, as teachers, we're so go, 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 and we're planning, all right, the next lesson, but it's like, just a reminder, like, these kids need a break, they're exhausted. But it was really nice to see, because it kind of brought me back to my roots of why I wanted to be a teacher. You know, I enjoyed school, I enjoyed playing with my friends, so it kind of just brought back that little spark. It was nice.
If I may, I came away from the student shadowing, with a really good, fresh reminder, about keeping good, perspective about, students' experiences. I was, shadowing an ELL student, so, it was, at once, very humbling and at the same time really inspiring. This student, just being able to see the student navigate a new language, navigate the transitions that happen during the day between his dealing with other ELL students in his native language, and then switching languages and carrying on and developing two different identities and navigating the toggling between those two throughout the day. Really just he handled it with such poise and such grace, and it was just really inspiring to see that, and a good stark reminder at how much many of us might take for granted the experience of maintaining and developing your own identity and sort of navigating the things that come with childhood, just making friends and doing your homework and figuring out where your class is. And, it's a good reminder for me, like, imagine having to do that in a new language. So it was really, really inspiring. Really good.
I think one of the other aspects too was seeing the social piece. As a teacher, you're focused on your lesson and pulling the students back in from that social piece. And in a student shadow, you could just be immersed in what is going on at the table and not have to have that instructor. And it was just what's going on at lunch, what's going on at the table, and what's kind of like, what's happening here. And that was, I think, an interesting part of that experience as well.
All right, so moving on to the next one.
Was there any questions from the board? Anything you wanted to know more about?
Was there anything that surprised you? Where you were like, I had no idea they really don't listen to us at all.
No. In terms of surprises, I don't think I found any particular surprises. I think it was just really just heartwarming and really invigorating as to the experience of being a student and just being part of just that the dynamic of their day. It's really just wonderful. It's a good reminder as to the joy that comes with this field. It's really good.
So you talk, sorry.
Ashley had something to say.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just gonna say, one thing I didn't expect to see so much was how comfortable the students are. I was in with fifth grade, but one, like the physical space, I think has transformed so much. So there's a lot of just like comfortable, flexible spaces for them to learn. And I think like for me, typically in an art room, like I'm just worried about mess and like I think of all the different ways that could go wrong. But I think between watching them interact with each other and still learning and kind of switch their focus and how that functions is really awesome. And then also there was a day, I think it was like around a half day, where they were reorganizing like their lockers. And something like that you could take for granted so easily, but the like relief that kind of went over kids when the teacher was helping them go through their locker and find things that were missing and make a list of things that they still need and just like reset. I think that was really refreshing to see too. It's like those little things that maybe we get taken for granted, and you also just saw how comfortable the kids were asking, like, yeah, I really have no idea where that notebook went. What's a good solution? Like, so like it was just really cool to kind of see them reset, and you see teachers almost functioning as parents in that way, which was just really nice, so.
But that's so interesting because a couple of you mentioned that concept of reset time. I mean, has it made you think about different ways that you could sort of maybe incorporate it in a way that doesn't make you feel like a parent and maybe makes you feel like, you know, a little bit more like it's part of your regular practice?
So I don't really mean that in a bad way, though. I think it's just like with a student being comfortable enough to bring something up when they're nervous about it. I think it's just refreshing to see from like an outside perspective, because it's nice when a kid comes to you and you know that, oh wow, that must have taken a lot. But I think watching it like one after another and all different students and for different things, it was just really great to see that relationship and comfort level. But
I think it's nice to see when we are facilitators of just not curriculum and specific academics, but lifelong life skills. So when they're comfortable and we've built that relationship, and I was lucky enough to go to the middle school and see a relationship of first year students, they'd only been there a few months, and the relationships within the hallway as well within the classrooms, where you can see that children feel safe, they feel comfortable to be themselves and to ask questions in a way that is proactive. And then the responses that come back are also proactive. So it seems like there's a relationship here that we don't just give, but we give just enough so independence and lifelong learners and creators and thinkers are being presented, which is really exciting to see.
I think also with that, I really appreciated that the student that I was shadowing, also it felt as though they were taking me under their wing. And it was like, come, mister, it's this way. Thanks. You know, it's like, I know you're new here. Yeah, you're right. So that was that, you know, that grace was just so nice. It was really just a welcome moment. Yeah.
And even the opportunity of having all three buildings come together to actually reflect on the student shadowing experience is interesting, because we get to hear different types of patterns that we're noticing that, you know, elementary school kids are doing the same thing, that are having the same issues that high school kids are having. So it just makes us as educators look at scheduling differently or organizing our classes differently. And it's nice to be able to have that like open space and a forum to actually communicate and talk to each other and have that debrief. But we don't always have that type of opportunity. So to be able to do that as part of the Teacher Academy is really powerful.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about the reflection piece a little bit later, but it was so like uplifting, and the amount of energy that came out of those discussions to just hear everyone's experiences and stories. It was just incredible, and it like really resonated with us, and we were like, oh my gosh, this is so great. We want like everyone to be able to do it.
And we didn't have that opportunity to do it when we started. So as soon as
we're like jealous.
we went through the debrief process, we ran to Stephen John.
Yeah.
You know, asked to be able to actually shadow a student for the day. So to have that, to be able to build that into our day is really unique.
And we've had other teachers also, tenured teachers say, hey, what about me?
Yeah.
And that's a great sign, so it's infectious. So the idea of learning from this experience is something that is moving and growing out of the Teacher Academy, so.
So the next experience was a teacher intervisitation, and it's very similar to student shadowing, but in this instance, we're kind of looking more at the lens of the teacher. So teachers looking at other teachers' practices and, you know, classroom environment.
I really enjoyed the intervisitation. I think that after teaching for so many years now, I think it's easy to silo oneself and to kind of keep yourself in your own little echo chamber. And I think that having the opportunity to see how other teachers are doing things is fantastic. It was great, especially teachers of different levels of experience, and we're all in a different spot in our career paths. And I think that there's always some level of data to collect from that. Lots of self-feedback, lots of sort of reassessing of what my style is in the grand scheme of things. There was a lot of validation of certain things of okay, I'm a little insecure about this, but I guess I'm doing it pretty well. Or reverse, hey, I really like the way that I'm doing this, and I could incorporate some of the things that this person's doing. And I think I wouldn't have gotten that opportunity had I not had a chance to see how someone else was. I actually would really like to do it again.
Right, and anyone else? So I did my interpretation with Tammy, and I would say we had a really beneficial experience. So I teach at PVC and she teaches in the elementary school. So as her kids transition to a new building, a new way of schooling, I get many of her students. So I was able to spend a day in Tammy's room and see her daily routine, the flow of her room, and the expectations that she has for her kids, and vice versa. She was able to come to mine and see what to expect. So I was able to see what routines I can keep for my room, and she was able to see what to expect when her kids come to me. So I think that experience helped make our rooms more fluid and the transition smoother for our kids.
I think it's really exciting to be able to see where the students are going and being able to sort of put a map there. So there are a lot of things when you go from an elementary school to a middle school. As an elementary school teacher, I'm not really thinking about, but being able to see just a simple example of the cafeteria life and what that looks like and how important money is going to be and how important scheduling is going to be for them because it's such a faster pace and visuals. So if I was able to take a lot of great tools that he has and say, if they could do it in the middle school, this is a great opportunity for me to start putting those in so that when they transition over, it's a much smoother and more comfortable transition so that we shrink the learning time about it, but it becomes more comfortable. And that's what learning is supposed to be about. Once you're comfortable, you can take in a lot more information and a lot faster. And amazing technology came out of that room. There's lots of stuff like I was like, I know how the ending is supposed to be, but how do you get there? And within 30 seconds, she's like, you click this, you do that. And I was like, oh, my new best friend. It was really nice to build those relationships.
Josh, did I see you had a question? How does it work with scheduling? So I'm interested in how, did you feel that you were pressed for time, or did you feel that you had lots of time available for this kind of cross-classroom work? Because I can imagine that it could be difficult from a scheduling point of view, perhaps more so. This might be something that is more the case at the high school, where schedules are much more complicated, and the older grades at the middle school. Did you feel that worked out well? And is there any commentary on that? Because I know it's something that we've heard in the past has been difficult.
I think we were very lucky that admin was very supportive of this program, and they really, they backed us on it. So we were able to get sub coverage when needed to explore these different opportunities, which was really helpful.
And the class that we were going to visit, we just, tried our best to look at our schedules, say, okay, what's our common times? How can we make this work and work together on that? But yes, admin was very supportive and that was helpful.
Thanks.
So that meant that you basically, at the high school level or the upper middle school level, would try to match up a period which was a prep for you, each of you, or one of you to go to the other class, et cetera. So you really didn't have coverage. I have a question actually for Chris and for Ashley, because you folks are both what we would call specials. And so both in your student shadowing and in your intervisitation, were you in connecting, I mean, obviously the students, you were connecting with the core class. Just wondering, how does you're seeing that how did that kind of click or affect your thinking about your own classroom practices or whatever? Because it's, music or art is a little bit different than English and social studies or elementary. So how did that work and what you get out of it in those perspectives?
So I think for us, in terms of like the intervisitation, being that students are grouped differently when they come to specials, it's important for us, I think, to like understand those groupings because it is completely different when they're in English and things like that. So we tried to time it, I think, so I could get a glimpse of the group that I was about to get and kind of like vice versa. We kind of were strategic in what we wanted to gain from it.
Yeah.
Whether it was like to help with seating charts and, like specific needs and things like that. So that was really beneficial. And then I think like we didn't necessarily do intervisitations out, but I know both of us have worked with other teachers and other projects, not necessarily on a shared
We visited,
dynamic.
we visited, the PE teacher.
Yep. And I worked with Sisters Inman and the LA teacher, and we did like an art collaboration, which was really awesome. So I think this whole process has like sparked the interest in obviously going to other classrooms as well. But our project that we did, again, this is kind of more the next topic, but we did kind of like a visualizing sound, music / science overlap, and in talking to like the science team for 6th grade, we tried to kind of combine all those things and connect with other teachers, not just.
Well, I think for me, I think, the visiting of other teachers, I think, always serves to, whenever I get the chance to see how someone else is working, I think it always serves to inform me a little bit as to, how the student dynamic is, outside. And then, if a lot of the time it's not too different, but there's always an element that is really beneficial to see, where certain students may have more involvement or interest or particular needs that need to be met. And that sort of may serve to inform how I set up my classroom. For example, the classroom you've seen, it's just a different physical space.
Sure.
So, some of the core classes, their setups are just different. And so that having that perspective has allowed me to kind of come away with a little bit of a different angle to see how I might serve student needs.
How often will you do intervisitation throughout the year?
I mean, this one was like the formal one. I think it's very open to anyone in the district to just pop in. I know I'm constantly popping into people's classrooms. But in terms of like a formalized one, anyone in the district is allowed to do that and they can schedule that with their admin.
Also remind the board that this is the first year where we are implementing our APPR variance process. And one of the things that teachers were able to do to opt out of one of their unannounced observations was to do intervisitation amongst, lesson study and other options. And so in addition to what you see right here, in terms of these teachers having that experience, 96 of our teachers have undergone this experience formally as part of that variance process.
Thanks.
But just for purposes of the plan, it's like once, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like this.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
But then throughout the year, I will touch base as much as I can with my colleagues, and if there's something that I think is particularly useful or that I could get something to cross over, I generally will say, can I pop in? I think in the second or third period, or rather first and second period. And I've popped in on some people's lessons and kind of seen how things are. I know for myself, I generally I try to make connections a lot through music. My background's in ethnomusicology, so I generally just come from that, trying to sort of take, sort of look at the world through a musical lens. But I try to sort of make those connections just sort of part of the course, just so I'm able to sort of see what other people are doing. I tend to kind of bring those things into the classroom somehow or other, just to make those connections happen.
I think that's okay as long as you don't deviate from the dance, because the dance. The dance.
Oh, yeah.
That was a surprise. surprise. No, I didn't expect that. I didn't expect it to go so well.
They love it.
They do love
They
it.
talk about it all the time.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Marissa?
Yeah, so I think at CET, we were given a lot of opportunities to do intervisitations. I was able to, join Janet Cueto's, program and see how she's using multisensory approach for reading. And I was able to use what she was using in her classroom with my kids as well. So it's very fluid and it's very easily able to obtain and do.
So I think what we're probing is something that I'd like to sort of like state explicitly my feeling about, is if a district goes and formalizes something, and says once a year you're going to do this, there's a byproduct that the faculty, I think, says, the administrators really believe in this, the board really believes in it, the system really believes in this. I have this experience, and from this experience, I see a personal benefit, and I want to keep doing it. So one formal opportunity can set a trigger that really becomes a part of a culture. And I think that what we're starting to hear is that's really where we're going. By saying intervisitation is something we formally do, it also just says, well, let me continue to do it and find opportunities to do it outside of the times when it's a formality. And that's obviously a wonderful thing.
It opens the door, right?
Yeah.
And I would add from what I heard, particularly something that you said, Chris, and I know this is probably from the idea that you said, like to pop in classrooms and see what is going on and perhaps bring things to your class and bring things from you to those classes. We've talked a lot about team teaching. We've talked about, dual course, mainly in the high school, talked about, a lot of different things to kind of break down the silo of ELA or social studies or, music or PE. And just hearing what you said, I see so many different opportunities to bring your passion from musicology into a lot of different other areas to show kids the connections and to give teachers sparks, which I know we've all been hearing. That's what you're doing among yourselves and with other faculty who want to get in on this great thing. So I think it's wonderful.
Another question I had was, I guess it was clear to me how in the previous presentation about shadowing students, where their experience there is very much like, oh, a teacher is kind of like interested in me, and it has an impact on that student and the students that are being shadowed in general. And I'm wondering whether when you're doing intervisitation, do you see any effect or impact on the students, on them witnessing that kind of moment of collaboration or learning from each other? Because it strikes me that a lot of schooling isn't set up to kind of demonstrate the power of collaboration and learning from like this kind of continual learning process, right? So I'm curious as to whether if someone's coming into your classroom the next day, is there a moment of like explaining to the students why they're gonna, see another teacher in the classroom, what it's about, what it means? Because I imagine that could also be a learning moment for our students.
As an example of collaboration.
Yeah.
Well, I know for myself, if I've let my students know, when we're gonna be visited, but when we were planning it ahead of time, it was open conversation, we're gonna be working on this and this, Miss Lupper, the kids, and a lot of the kids will just ask. And that's great. Why was Miss Lupper here? Why'd she bringing things in?
Yeah, well, I will say, and this might, again, be more about the next chunk, but I think the more students see us in a lot of different places, learning a lot of different things, talking about things that excite us that maybe weren't like, oh wait, you're my art teacher, oh wait, but you also teach indie, oh wait, but you're also in the music room, but then you're also in English, what? I think it normalizes the fact that we're people and everything they're learning all day is super important, and helps emphasize the connections that are being made. So it confuses them at first, but I think eventually they're just oh, you again.
I think that's a good word also, normalizes, a lot of the time I'm telling the kids, it's just why are we learning this? Well, it's a lot of reasons why, get the kind of time, but, you know, I think it's important that we normalize, just sort of the realities of dynamics of learning, you know? And, you know, and a lot of the time, I enjoy when they're kind of like surprised and they ask these probing questions as to how do you know that? You know, like, I was teaching about, Bach, and it turned into a conversation about machine learning and algorithms and artificial intelligence. And, you know, one kid said, how do you know that if you're a music teacher? Keep studying. It's not just old. You know? You take classes? Yeah, I take classes for fun. Absolutely. And it's like, and so, you know, I think that normalization, I think that word is really just a good word. You know, and it's good that they see it in action. It's not just theory, it's actually application. It's real.
I think I was gonna say, I think in my experience, they're always really excited for someone to come in, and watch them and watch what we do. And the conversation before, it's just a lot like, so-and-so is gonna come in, they're gonna see what we do in the reading room, and they're just always very excited to share that. I've had speech colleagues come in to collaborate on a student or to get an opinion. I've had administrators come in and observe the intervisitation, and they're always just excited to show them what they do and what they know. So I feel like for students, it's always been, my experiences has always been positive for them.
And when they know we're excited, they get more excited.
Yeah.
So when we get excited about doing a specific lesson, they like feed off of our energy and they get excited for it too. So just being able to collaborate and, you know, give off that type of energy is really great.
We did a lesson in Lainey's class, and when the kids were watching us, I realized, sort of hovering above it, that when we were giving feedback to each other, and there was a moment where we had planned this lesson and she had changed one little tiny thing to make it color coordinated. And as a special ed teacher, I got so excited and I was like, why didn't I think of that? But in that moment, I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. And the kids were like, whoa, you're really excited. And I was, but I realized that something they don't actually get to see is real live collaboration and positive feedback and communication and how to work as a team. We tell them how to do it and we give little samples. But what we did on that day was we actually modeled how to kind of give feedback to each other and work as a team. And you could see that the kids sort of like went back to their small groups, and then the dialogue started to happen naturally for them as well. And part of that was really exciting to me, because I know for myself, I always want my kids to see it, because it's always better to watch it and kind of absorb and take a little for their own toolboxes. And I felt like that kind of activity really gave them tools, but it also gave us energy. So it was a win-win for everybody.
Speaking off of that a little bit, I think that experience was so meaningful for the students. I will be honest, I was a little bit nervous about there being so many adults in the room, because they've never had that many adults in the room watching them. So we did have a conversation beforehand just so they knew what to expect, but they were so interested and they were so engaged and they were so excited about what they were learning that they didn't even realize they were learning a really challenging concept. And they are still asking me, when are we gonna be able to do that again? When are we gonna have people come back to the classroom and visit it? So it wasn't only meaningful for us, it was really meaningful for the students. And they want that to continue. They really enjoyed it.
Because they were excited, like, we have 5 teachers.
They felt so special.
So it kind of led us into our next one. The lesson study was like the culmination of the New Teacher Academy, and that's where teachers get to collaboratively plan the lesson. They can kind of use whatever structure they want to create these lessons. So some groups decided they would kind of split up into 2 groups. One group would observe while one group is doing the lesson, and then they would flip-flop. Whereas other groups decided to kind of full-fledged, like just dive all in together and create this one, you know, massive transdisciplinary kind of lesson. So it kind of was pretty open to however the new teachers would like to, you know, kind of create this lesson organically. And we had some great lessons that came out of it. Barbie Bungee, ancient musical instruments, filling time, Lunar New Year, conoscopes, area of rectangles, and interpreting graphs and data.
And even just to give you a quick idea, like the Barbie Bungee activity, that was when high school kids were actually coming in to teach the elementary kids. So they came down to CT and they worked together on an activity. And it was really nice and refreshing to see just that type of collaboration between the kids as much as it is for the teachers. So.
I really enjoyed the lesson study because as we are trying to innovate the craft, it helped me fall back on the fundamentals of what good teaching is.
And I also enjoyed the lesson study where we were able to work together, collaborate with our colleagues, and everyone could bring one of their strengths or more of their strengths to the table to create, you know, a much bigger lesson that really incorporated everyone's strengths and things that they're good at.
Yeah, and I also participated in the lesson study with these guys here. And what I thought was really great was how it benefited the students. We were really able to get this interdisciplinary approach. So for example, the lesson that Derek and I co-taught was with an English class where we were able to really have more of a math and science bend that included a study of graphs and misinformation. And it was really neat for students to get a different perspective and have some different voices in the room.
Doing the lesson study was really cool because as a high school teacher, I very rarely get a chance to go into an elementary school classroom at all. And this gave me the opportunity not just to go into an elementary school classroom, but to bring my high school students and find some of like the overlapping content that we covered. And it was great. Not only did I have a lot of fun, my students had a lot of fun. Liz's students also had a ton of fun, and we were able to have this really cool experience without compromising content. So now, as I'm developing this new interdisciplinary course, my goal is to infuse more cross-building, cross-grade activities and try to see kind of like how I can expand upon just this one lesson and turn it into something a little bit more sustainable.
Oh, I absolutely loved it. It was great. I definitely look forward to having the opportunity to do it again. I worked with Miss Lupfer, and what we did was we built tonoscopes with the kids, or rather, we guided the kids in building their own tonoscopes. And the tonoscopes, if you're not sure what they are, they're DIY devices that allowed the kids to essentially experience cymatics, which is the study of wave phenomena. Since you're visualizing sound, you're literally seeing sound, which is great. So I mean, a lot of the time, I tell the kids, you can kind of, like there's everything is in music. There's math and there's science and there's physics and there's history and there's all kinds of it's there, everything's there. So this was actually a chance for me, like, prove it. So it's like, this is like science. Yeah. So this is like, why are we doing science and music? I'm like, no, it's that overlap. That's that I was telling you about.
But
So
there was one point where a student, I don't know if you remember this, he got so excited. He was just like, I know it. He's like, we learned
that was
Mr. Gallagher. And he, like, the joy that came out of his child. I immediately. But I mean, it was like very cool to see them. And I think the timing was really important too, whether you're front loading or the opposite. But I mean, we just cracked up.
It was fantastic because it was like, it was a total manifestation of that moment, that aha moment where you kind of, you overlap something you already know, that I learned this already, like it's here now. And, and I think those connections are really valuable, and impactful for anyone. I mean, none of us really ever stops learning. And I think it was just really, just fantastic to see that. And the kids, of course, they, working together in groups and giving themselves jobs and experimenting with things and making mistakes. A lot of the time, I think, it's really important that they know that it's okay to make, mistakes and mess up and we're just going to do it again. This is the iteration process, I think there's a lot of value in that, I think, and I think they came away with it really enthusiastically, I think.
So Lucy and I actually did the Lunar New Year lesson together, and I have English language learners, and they absolutely loved it because it incorporated their language, Mandarin, the Chinese culture was involved. So it was like, an immersion of different cultures and languages. And then it was so nice, they got really, really into it, and some of my kids are still talking about it. They still ask me like, oh, about the horoscopes and everything and the cultural comparisons. But then later in the day, Lucy had a little celebration in her room where she served food, homemade food that she had made from, for the new year.
And my kids she invited them down, so they came to her classroom and they met students that they had never met before. They were in a different classroom and they still talk about it, like they loved it.
I think it's a good chance to know more students as they are in now. Students, they are a little shy because of language ability. So sometimes before they say anything, I hope we can do more for them before, they say anything. I just invite them to come to my classroom in the afternoon for the Chinese New Year celebration. They were very happy and they were like the VIP. I let them to eat first because they need those kind of like priority. What do I say to say like the people usually ignore me. I'm not saying they ignore them. We ignore them because their language ability, they tend to not talk to behind people. So I want to bring them up, bring them to the top.
One of my students said it was, your dumplings were the best thing he ever.
And next year we can do it together.
Oh, I loved it. As someone who observed that lesson,
Yes.
I thought it was really cool how they all the teachers that were working together all had different strengths and they really worked as a team. And everybody brought their own strengths to the table. So Amy really knows her students and their needs. And Lucy was really good at presenting the history behind Lunar New Year and why they do the different traditions that they do. And the kids just really enjoyed learning about another culture. Thank you. You're welcome.
It's like a lot of connections on different levels.
So I have a question which really doesn't necessarily relate to the new teacher experience, but it relates to one of the things that I know in the system, administration, board have talked about, and that is something that a couple of you said about, I think, Chris, you said, kids, they fail and they try again. I'm wondering about what things do teachers do, you as, new teachers in our district, but teachers, anyway, to inculcate the idea that it's okay if you don't succeed and you try again, and yes, you may kind of get a little exasperated, but that's part of life. How does that come across? How do you encourage or deal with a child who maybe crawls into a shell when it didn't work the first time?
I can tell you personally.
That you may all have your experience.
Personally, I do this daily. I call out my own mistakes as they happen. I drop something, I break something, I move the video too far beyond where we were looking, or I slipped on a wire and almost, tripped, and we had a good laugh about it. So it's, it's a constant thing for me, and it's life, like you said it, it's okay. When sometimes it's, no one got hurt, okay, well, we're gonna keep going. That sort of thing. And and when frustrations happen, and when I see them happening, we just started a few lessons on salsa dancing. And so there's a little bit of coordination that takes place there. You've got to kind of get it, and we have to understand where a student is in their development, and coordination is not, it doesn't always just happen, So if the frustration's happening, it's very simple. I'll say, hey, I didn't get this either. I had to do this a couple of times, and I have no problem pointing out where I mess up stuff, and they generally appreciate it, and we have a good laugh about it. I laugh about it, they laugh about it, and some kids I've seen in the last few months, some kids have really developed, and they kind of say, all right, and they'll have a good laugh about it as well. No one really gets upset, and we keep going. If a string breaks on a ukulele, I'll just change it. The downside is we gotta wait a few minutes while I do that. But it's just what it comes with.
I think it's normalizing mistakes, and then also, especially in the younger grades, vocalizing the problem solving process. Like, oh, I misplaced my packet. I will go over here now and like go find a new one. Or I dropped my water bottle, spilled water on the floor.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go get paper towels and clean up. Just vocalizing so they hear it, so that they start to instill in their own selves of that problem solving process and thinking.
And I think it's also something you include when you're building your classroom community and your relationships with your students throughout, at the beginning of the school year and throughout the school year. Something kind of you just embed within your community. Piece of that.
It also encourages the kids to really take risks, because
Yes.
naturally
Yeah.
don't
And
always want
that's
to
the
take
thing I was-
risks.
Yes, that's part of the
So
failure.
Part of, and accepting it, because they're very quick to say to us, oh,
Yeah.
you did this wrong, or you made a mistake
yeah.
here, and we'll laugh about it, right? Because
Yeah.
we know we can, and we take those risks, but sometimes it's hard when you're younger, you're 10 and 5, whatever age you are, it's hard for them to see that it's okay. So we want to really instill that behavior in them and for them to see that it's okay.
And I think seeing us take risks and knowing that, hey, this is the first time we've collaborated together and built tonoscopes, and it may or may not work, and we're gonna just do this and see how it goes and reflect and move on from there. I think that
And we
will-
tell them that, we outright will always say to them, we're trying this new lesson, we want to co-teach this right now. And they'll ask us questions, like, no, we have no answers, we don't know, we have to take that chance.
Yeah.
And they like to see us struggle also,
Yeah.
because then they know that we're people too.
Yes, and we verbalize it, we
Sometimes-
say, you know, sometimes it might make you feel uncomfortable, it might make people feel comfortable to try something new, but look at the outcome of it.
And that's part of making sure that the classrooms are a safe space for them to take those types of risks.
Yeah, a lot of building mindsets is really important, and building strategies and tools on how to get those mindsets. Some stuff may come natural for some children, they may be just naturally strong and mindsets and have a grit that just comes from somewhere. We all just wonder where it could be, and we'd like a little bit more of it. I think the other part of it is building those thinking patterns and creating tools for us. So a simple example in my classroom is we continuously talk about 3, 2, 1, 3 things that we really did well, 2 things that, we did okay, but I'd really like to make a change next time. And 1 thing, whew, let's not do that bad boy again. Because honestly, if our life is like that and our mindset is like that, and that's how we go at everything, it's going to give us the bravery without realizing and identifying that word as I'm being brave. It's just the lifestyle and the practice that you do. And then recognizing fear. I think a lot of things that I think are newer for teachers is years ago, I always think of my teachers and they seemed fearless just instinctively. But I didn't know how to reach that with them. I think we're more open and we're trying to build dialogue so that through our process, they're seeing it's okay to name it. It's okay to think of a plan of action. It's okay to have a plan B. And then it's okay to discuss it with other people and to recognize feelings in a different way than maybe in times past. So recognizing and owning it gives you power and having those pieces, and not just acknowledging a feeling, but knowing what to do with those feelings to be proactive. So it's a big plan of action, and I think we could talk about it for a long time. But I think I mean, I can see in the classrooms that I've been in this year, and I'm really nosy, and I love to see great things, and I love tools. So I've been in a lot of them, and I can't say that I've ever been in a room in this community where they're not continuously talking about, I love what we did, but what next? And that also builds strength in character.
Going off of that, sometimes I think what can also be helpful is when we're grasping something to stop where we're at and look at where we came from. So when we're starting to understand a concept, I think it can be really powerful to have those conversations with children of like, let's look back to when we first started learning this concept and it felt really hard to you. If we would have stopped or given up when it felt hard and we did not go through that process of taking risks and making mistakes, we never would have gotten to this point that we're at now. So not only looking at where we're at and going forward, but also looking at where we're at and where we came from and what it took to get there, what process we had to go through.
Taylor, I think you had wanted to say
Yeah.
something, I don't want to.
So I think it's really important to show the students how smart they actually are. I have a few students in my room who get really down on themselves if they get one problem out of a sheet of 10 wrong. And I try to express to them that that's okay, we all make mistakes. I have one student in particular who cannot get over it if there was one question wrong. So a tactic that I use is I show him how smart he really is. I'll put a question that I know he'll get right on his board. He'll do it and I'll be like, see, you are smart. You just did that whole entire question by yourself. And it kind of snaps him out of him being down on himself and lets him realize, okay, I might not be able to do this, but I totally can do this. So in my room, I know it might sound cheesy, but we say a lot the power of yet. So yes, I see other people doing something. I cannot do it, but that doesn't mean I'll never be able to do it. I'll make my way there at my own speed. So that's something that I stress with my kids.
I think that's great. I have the power of how, like, I like the word how. You know, as I try to implement more of the dynamic of design thinking in how we conduct ourselves and how we teach and learn and things like that. I focus a lot on the process with the kids and let them know that whether it's a ukulele or dance steps or whatever, it doesn't matter, some component of music, there's a process. And, you know, if you pick up a guitar today, you're not gonna be amazing tomorrow. It's highly unlikely, could be, yeah, sure. But, you know, to be ready for the likelihood that there will be a process. And I, you know, and I tell the kids, you know, just remember how can we get this way? So, you know, you messed up this, well, how can I get it better this way? How can I get this in a new way? So I like that word, how, a lot, so just going with that yet. And I, you know, and I tell the kids as well, a lot of the time, you know, we're all an expert at something. You know, you're an expert at something, maybe what is it? Some of us are experts at knowing a lot of stuff. And you know, just lean into that strength.
And I think providing students, excuse me, with a safe space to make those mistakes is important. A lot of the students I work with are vulnerable and school's hard for them. So letting them know, hey, it's okay, you know, make mistakes, not the end of the world. And allowing them to feel within the space itself, within the community that we create, to feel safe enough to take those risks.
Some students, they have the ability to do very well. They are very lazy to do it. Then in that case, I push them. But for other kids, they really tried, but they cannot reach the level. I believe one sentence, every kid deserves a champion. So I just encourage them for other part, like you sing Chinese song very well, I give you some extra credit. Or, you know, for other part, you tell story very well. Even, you know, sometimes during the helping period, I have to reteach again, I reteach again, just to help them.
I really like that, your comment about everybody's an expert in something. I think that's how you said it. And I like the idea of engaging students in their expertise as a way to inspire them. But it also inspires the next student over. To find their expertise.
And to collaborate.
Yeah.
Because they can share. And what I was thinking about all this, because my kids are out of school, but both of my kids did Destination Imagination, middle school and high school. And Josh, of course, is very familiar. One of the things that I thought about when I heard Chris talk about how is the fact that in DI, the parents, the coaches are never allowed to say how. They're allowed to say, can you see how to do this? But they can't tell them. And so it helps the kids. And what I hear from all of you in the teaching that you're doing is a focus on empowering children to be able to try, maybe fail, but reach that goal, whether it's by themselves or using an adult as a resource or using a fellow student as a resource, which is all part of the process of learning and growing that we as a system are trying to instill. And I think that's, you know, that gets me sitting at this side of the table.
So before we move on from lesson study, I just wanted to also just remind everybody that this was also another option in our APPR variance. And in addition to these fine representatives of people that conducted lesson study, another 40 teachers also engaged in lesson studies in this. It's a nice little piece of data for you.
We're gonna move into just the reflection debrief at the end of each of the different components, like the lesson study or intervisitation or student shadowing. We had a different type of a debrief session. So we met directly after each of those sessions and just had an informal conversation. But then at the very end, we recently asked the new teacher academy what was most helpful about the process. You could see just some of the different reflections, and then you'll notice the stickers. We had them then move around the room and, you know, choose top 2 or top 3, just so that everyone has that experience and can really look into, you know, where they agree and disagree. So we also asked them if they plan to implement an idea from one or more of these experiences in the classroom next year, because we don't want this to be just a single experience. We want them to be able to do this again, and we want teachers to be excited about doing this. We want this to keep going. And then which experiences made the greatest impact for you and your students?
So let me just ask this, what I see there is a lot of people said lesson study, right, of this,
Right.
right, is that in essence reflective of what the new Teacher Academy participants felt that the lesson study was most, had the greatest impact on them?
I
Or is
think
that
it was-
just kind of the way you took that photo?
I think it was because the student shadowing and the intervisitation led up to this culminating lesson study that it like was this umbrella that encompassed everything that they've experienced. So I think that's why that one kind of stood out.
It brought everything together,
Yeah.
and really allowed them to take those risks, even as teachers. So I really think that, I mean, it was pretty split through the entire process, where some people like the lesson study, some liked shadowing, but in the end, those two experiences really came together in the lesson study.
And then we asked, like, was it helpful to have 2 years of new teachers or teachers who are new to Croton in the NTA as opposed to just one, as what's traditionally done in most schools and has been done in the past? And it was pretty much unanimous that everyone felt like having, the year ones and year twos together really built a sense of community. It was good to lean on strengths in both, year one and year two. There really wasn't a designation between the two. We're just like one big cohort, which was really nice. So yeah.
It really allows everybody to.
I would say the most impactful
Sorry.
part of the
Elaborate. I'll just, no, that's good. Go ahead.
is the cohort of individuals. Each opportunity that we had for the student shadowing or the intervisitation, the lesson study allowed us to work with a different cohort within our academy. And I think that was most valuable, not only in building the professional relationships, but also moving into the friendship side of things as well. It's nice to see them at superintendent days and give a friendly wave and have the opportunity to collaborate that way.
And then there's just that theme of like building this huge like cohort that really can lean on each other, feel supported. And I think that's especially important being new to a district, maybe not even new to teaching, but new to a district that like you're welcomed. You have these group of people that you can ask any type of question to.
It's like having a group of mentors that just follow you through each year. So it's not like we're only doing this academy one year and then don't do it again. It's to be able to work together and collaborate and, take risks and, design lessons together, whatever it might be. It just continues to encourage us to work together.
As you envision how the new teacher academy, I guess, evolves as you continue to go on, with it being this 2 years, how will that work? Like next year, will the year one cohort, like the year one's teachers in this cohort stay together, or will they work then with the new year ones as the year two? Like I'm wondering how you envision that involvement, how that process continues on.
TBD. Yeah, that's
We're
the question
scheduling
that
our
comes
meetings
up
and
often.
organizing.
Yeah, we're gonna meet with John and Steve and.
It's gonna be fun to iterate,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we don't have a firm answer right now, but I would lean towards thinking that there is something very special about having a year one and two together. And thinking about how the people here who are year ones, sorry to give a spoiler, I think maybe you're gonna do it next year, but how your experience is doing a second time and being able to sort of having gone through it and be mentors to the people that are just coming on board for the 24-25 school year, I think it'd be a very exciting thing to consider. And if you are a year two and in your second to last or last year of a probation period, to really think about like what's next for you as you go into year three. And it is gonna be iterative and it's fun, and I look forward to those conversations and we head towards the summer months to sit down and have those conversations and develop a plan.
I have a quick question, just talking about incoming faculty next year, given how many new faculty we're gonna have at CET, is there a plan to, sparse that out? You'll be so heavy in terms of new CET teachers next year.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna, I think that the nice thing about a cohort model is it's not like a one-to-one mentorship. I think that what you're hearing is that there was a benefit to working with teachers K through 12. Certainly a lot of the lesson studies, a lot of the intervisitations happened across the school. So I'm hoping, Anna, that really thinking about moving New Teacher Academy to this kind of collegial support kind of an atmosphere will address the fact that, yeah, there's going to be, 5 new classroom teachers in CET, and that's gonna, and I think this structure will hopefully do well to really support them.
Is there something, if you're sort of thinking and dreaming big and thinking about how this process has worked this year, is there something that you could envision as like another module that would be beneficial that you would like to add in? Is there something else that, you're thinking of that you would like, you think would be a great addition to these current 3 kind of big projects?
Tough question. I think we've really come a long way. Like we've really reimagined where it was and where we are today. I think it's a work in progress. We're always coming up with ideas and then we send our emails over and we're like, oh, let's try something new.
So I'll sort of live question it here, because one of the things that was one of the cornerstones of the New Teacher Academy was the LATIC model. So for those of you who don't know, the LATIC model was really a way of looking at designing learning to really maximize student engagement through all of the resources that a teacher could have at their disposal. And that's something that I guess took the back burner, we could say safely. Is that something that you would see wanting to try to, I guess you say, do you see there's a need with the teachers we're hiring now to have that kind of pedagogical toolkit to put into place?
I think we could definitely do aspects of it, but I felt like it was almost a natural connection to the lesson study because of the interdisciplinary nature of the lessons that were being created, that it lent itself to almost a LATIC type without being the prescribed exact LATIC model, which was nice. Maybe, like dissecting a lesson or something like that to that nature, or even I was thinking technology integration and things like that is always something new teachers as well as, veteran teachers like to have, so maybe through a lens of that.
A lot of the teachers that we have in Groton already do a lot of the components of the LATIC model. And it's very much like a lot of the lessons are driven by the students. So I think naturally, like the parts of the LATIC model are infused within those 3 categories within the New Teacher Academy. It's just the way that we're really organizing it. Rather, like you said, we're not following a specific recipe. And that's what we didn't want from the LATIC model. We didn't want to follow a specific recipe because we all teach something different. We wanted to take some of the components of it.
And I felt like this way was almost more natural and authentic to getting them there than just like a prescribed, hey, here's kind of what LATIC is. It's almost like they saw the student portion of it through the student shadowing, then the intervisitations led up, and it built to this natural interdisciplinary piece to it. So it was so much more authentic.
When you give so many parameters and tell people to follow it, like almost takes the joy away from teaching and the creativity away. So when we give them the flexibility through those 3 different components in the New Teacher Academy, it just gives us a little bit more freedom to get creative lessons.
This might be a little bit of a deviation from what we're talking about, but just in terms of what we're doing as a district, in terms of our pedagogical coaching, how does that play into all of this for new teachers and the New Teacher Academy? Because you're doing this while you're simultaneously doing that. So is there an overlap, or is it? And that might be for like Jenny and Erica and John to answer.
Yeah, I'd say yes. I mean, I think that the wonderful thing about pedagogical coaches is that they are there for everybody. I know that there are several examples of new teachers who have gone to pedagogical coaches. I know the coaches stop in on new teachers. I mean, I'm sure, you know, there might be some anecdotes that could come out, but it's definitely, you know, it's definitely layered and infused into, I think, the experience of all of our faculty, the pedagogical coaching.
But it's separate from like the new teacher. Huh?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
But I can say that it was really supportive to have them there in CET. The two in our school happen to be my next door neighbors. And I can say to you, numerous times through the year, I have knocked on the door, made an appointment, whether it's basic things, just like you have different formats or programs that you use that I might not have been familiar with. And being able to take 15 or 20 minutes to be like, these are the steps in which you use it, and taking some notes, or having someone to have a second eye through not wanting to change the feel or the vibe of what an idea in a Croton classroom is. I wanted to make sure that I was continuing the same connection between the other grades that I was with, and their experience was able to tell me, these are some of the things that would be coming. So they were really good at forward planning and supporting in that way. And then just really sharing amazing ideas. I mean, just this week, they've cost me a lot of money because they came up with a desk pet, and I walked in and I was like, I must have it, and tell me all about it. And they were able to take a little bit of time, and you know, my husband doesn't know that the Amazon package is on its way. And we have a new source of responsibility in our classroom, which is amazing. And being able, they're always so welcome to share those ideas. And it's a lot of fun, and it builds a nice relationship to feel safe and ask questions. Maybe in that first year, I mean, I think I've been doing this long enough that I know you've got a first year to ask anything you want, and that they're there to support. But knowing that that's sort of their title gives you that extra sense of protection, even as an adult, when you're trying to have your own grit and be brave. They were there to be amazing, and they were just wonderful people.
And the desk pets are very cute.
They are.
They're very
Thank
cute.
you for validating that.
Yes.
My husband watches
Money
it,
well
so
spent.
it's,
Definitely money well spent.
So I have a question for those who are basically most recently out of colleges or masters in education, which is just from what you've seen in this year and 2 years, what is it that education programs don't provide to you once you get into a district, or, you know, maybe this district as maybe an exemplar? Because, you know, we hear a lot of, we should, you know, buck up the colleges for bachelor's and master's of education, but, you know, I'm an attorney, and I went to law school, and, you know, there's a lot of stuff that you never learned in law school once you became an attorney. And I'm wondering, what have you found as, I'm a teacher, what did I not learn? Or what did they teach me that really has no meaning to my life today?
So I can start.
Yeah.
This is my first year teaching ever, so I'm very grateful New Teacher Academy, because although we're all first and second year teachers, majority of them have years under their belt. I am a true first year teacher, so leaning on them was really great for me. But I'm constantly saying, I wish I learned this in college, because in college you learn about education and the history of education, but you don't truly learn what to do until you're thrown into a classroom. It's the first day of school and you're like, okay, I thought I knew what I'm doing, but now what? What do I do what do I do now? So I think that college, especially my courses, revolved around the basics of education, the data to collect, but not really true experiences that you witness in the classroom. So I think it really just being thrown into it and having people to help you navigate through it is really helpful.
One of the courses that I took in college was actually, we went to a local elementary school and we worked with a small group of students, so it was a reading class. And that was one of the most meaningful classes that I took, because it actually gave me some experience, and I wish I had more opportunities like that in college to get a sense of what it was actually like, instead of just learning about someone else's experience or the history behind it. What is it actually like, and is that something that I could see myself doing for the rest of my life? it is something that I can, but I think having more of those experiences would allow people to see it firsthand instead of waiting until you get into the classroom to see, the actual day to day, how do I do this?
I think a big benefit from when I went to school was the student teaching process, of able to actually student teacher and growing, which was amazing. I think I learned a lot during my years here than in the classroom during lecture halls, but giving the chance to have that student teaching opportunity, and I was in the classroom 5 days a week, 2 days a week, so, and in multiple grades, and actually I was a student teacher for Erica Camilla, which is kind of crazy. But having the chance to have that more hands-on learning instead of just sitting in the lecture hall listening to, this is how you create a lesson. I do, we do, you do, or, that whole side of teaching, it was more beneficial to be hands-on.
So I'm not a new teacher, I'm like in year 10, but I will say during the hiring process, I really respected how in-depth it was and how many layers to it was. So I remember the first day I came, it was a very quick interview. I felt wonderful about it, but I just wanted to walk around the school. I wanted to see more. I wanted to learn more. And when I had that opportunity after day 3, I felt like I learned a lot. So I guess depending on when someone's hired, I think it would be really beneficial to have like more opportunities to be in the schools and just learn about the students in the district and the community. And I think coming out of school and how that timing could land could provide more of that. And I don't know if that's like super relevant to answer your question, but it was like very beneficial for me to have that day and really just meet the people I'd be working with and have that opportunity. So I don't know how that part works, but it was awesome to have it.
I'm not a first year teacher, but I want to tell you guys something that is really honest and meaningful, which is been teaching long enough. I started at a school in Massachusetts, which was fully constructed. So I started my first day of learning to be a teacher in a classroom. I did all day and then all night learning the pedagogy. It was a 1-year master's program. And what I learned in there was probably more valuable than anything. And the place I learned it was in each room with each teacher. They shared everything they had. But it was a very specific program that was designed. They picked the teachers that we worked with very well. We had teachers that had been retired and they were pretty much our drill sergeants to make sure they came in and they gave us feedback on everything from how I stood to my nails to what do you do when something happens, here's the strategies. You didn't get to do anything until you had talked it through and visualized what it was like. And so your mind almost, it sounds strange, but like in the military, your mind worked like a teacher's mind. You knew where to stand, you knew where you were going when A and B happened, you knew those tools you had. And all through the years, it's always been that. And before coming to this school, I was pretty much done applying. And I'll say this now is that I didn't respond right away to your invitation to participate in Croton because I clicked the button and then I think through the year I was like, yeah, I've been doing this a long time. But really, the place I was dreaming of in Massachusetts, in Amherst, Mass, it's not here in New York. It's not going to be here. I wanted a constructivist. I wanted a place where I could create and still be as much of a learner as the children and be excited about learning every single day. And I got a phone call that said, why don't you think about it, and talked about the school a little bit. And honestly, I had to have a little bit of faith. I still wasn't 100% sure, but through the process, there was a piece that, it might have been when the genie bottle came out. And she asked me to make 3 wishes about what I would do if I had any opportunity to choose anything about learning and teaching. That I thought, this just might be my home, and I've been waiting for it a long time. But when you get to a place that you get a professional respect, an understanding that creativity is just as important and learning is the process, and people who are willing to let you take risks and support you so that you can do the same for the kids, you've got something pretty amazing. Everyone in my world is happier that I'm here. And so I thank you for that because I'm a happier person because I'm doing what I love and what I envisioned doing 16 years ago. So this is the best place to be, to do the craft of teaching and to keep learning. And I've learned a ton this year just from working with these people, whether they're their first or twice as many as I have. So I'm always grateful.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if anybody else has anything, but that's the way you end. discussion. Because I do have one thing that I would add, something which is.
I thought we were ending.
Yeah, but I just want to say how impressed I am with this and with the opportunity to hear from you. Because when we as board members go and do a learning week, it's kind of like we go in a classroom, we look for 5 minutes, you know, maybe where they say, did you see that? Did you see what they're doing? But to me, well, and yeah, well, that's a different issue as to whether but, you know, the idea of just having some time to hear how teachers in all the schools approach what they're doing, how they're doing it, how they connect with the kids, things that we wouldn't even see in 5 minutes, but I can appreciate, and I hope others can too, from what we've heard tonight.
Anyone have anything else?
I do have something to say.
absolutely.
I want to thank you all for coming and being vulnerable, because I know as new teachers, it must be intimidating to come to a new teacher academy talk in front of the board. And I want to thank you all for connecting with our students every day. And for caring for them the way that you do, because I know that what you do every day doesn't come from a place other than caring. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for coming here. Thank you for coming and meeting with the board. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
All right, well, I can't say it any better than that. Thank you all for joining us this evening, and if that is it, recommended action that the board adjourn at 8:58 PM.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, motion carries. All right, thank you so much for joining us.
Put that there.